my photos are very different, and I'm pleased that they're different because there's already so many talented people doing really beautiful work. I think that my photos are about that stopping, that stillness of like, this here right now is a moment for you to take and, I don't know, draw something from. So I think that's what I'm trying to communicate.
Everybody has their own sort of take on photography. Your stuff stands out because it's not that big, beautiful, crisp, like dawn or sunset shots.
Yeah.
There's something a little bit more thoughtful there, and it feels like there's something you're trying to say, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic to hear it, and you know, it's interesting that you say I'm not a traditional sort of photographer style or landscape style, because I've always struggled to see where I fit in the realm of photography, because obviously my tool is the camera, but
Yeah.
my photos are very different, and I'm pleased that they're different. I suppose I'm attracted to the simpler, smaller things that you just uncover. I mean, you know, Tasmania is full of so much beauty, and we do have stunning vistas and landscapes and sunsets and light and colour, but we also have these minute and just immediate things as well that you don't even need to trek up a mountain for or be up at dawn to experience.
Right.
And I think I want to bring that to the table.
After being out in the sticks today, and you know, those giant trees, which of course you have to photograph.
Yes.
It wasn't all about taking in that big scene, or even the small fungi. You had some bigger things going on, but not vistas.
No.
Yeah. And it feels more intimate, I guess, in that way, because that's where you are.
I think I'm trying to get people to pause and appreciate the immediate surroundings. I think that my photos are about that stopping, that stillness of like, this here right now is a moment for you to take and, I don't know, draw something from. So I think that's what I'm trying to communicate.
Is there a particular thing that you're looking for?
No, anything that arrests me, which is common, which is so everywhere that you look. I mean, it'll be light, it'll be shape, it'll be colour. I'm attracted to colour. It'll be sometimes something that creates a bit of a alternate, fantastical sort of reality, like something that conjures up maybe magic or childhood or fantasy, sort of, just anywhere that allows you to sort of maybe consider stepping into another world or another moment, out of the day-to-day.
It's not just the camera that you like to take people on that journey with, is it?
The camera for me is the base point, and I suppose it's like the canvas, or even the blank canvas to some extent, and I draw whatever I can and feel into that moment, and then I take that home, and then I look at it and see what I've got, and then I start to say, well, where can I take it? And I want to take it to that little place of pause and magic that people might be able to feel, and if that means it needs a bit of work, then I'll go there, and if it doesn't, that's great too. I think it was a very natural evolution. I mean, I've always been creative, always been into art. I draw, I paint, and then I study design, and for work I've done a lot of sort of graphic design related stuff. So I think that's a natural marriage of image manipulation from that, and I will paint on my photographs, so I think bringing that physical painting realm into the digital is something that kind of was a natural evolution for me. And then I was really frightened to edit a photo to start with. I mean, one, there's the criticism perhaps of, not being a traditional photographer, but there's also I was just so frightened to get into Photoshop and manipulate stuff, because I don't know what, fear of damaging the photo, I don't know, but the more comfortable I got, I was just amazed that there's a complete freedom to do whatever you want, really, and it's not, the world's not going to blow up if you do decide to do that to your photo.
You wouldn't be the first person to paint on an actual photograph.
Well, that's right. That's right. I mean, and people do all sorts of wild stuff. So
even back in the early 1920s, people were colorizing their photos by painting on them.
And gold plate too, so I'm relatively conservative, I think, in that scheme of things. The photo will tell me what I need to do and where I need to go, and sometimes you do look at the photo and it's got everything it needs to say, and that's fine, very little editing required, but then others you're like, just doesn't quite get the message across, whatever it is that I'm feeling, and I'm really instinctual. I don't like to preempt what the photo needs to be or what it will be, so it will tell me.
So your feeling your way right from the moment that you've got the camera in the hand.
Yeah,
basically.
I'm pretty much just anything that attracts me, you know, and obviously the more you look, the more you see. I find your first few photos, you're a bit tentative, but, you know, as you sort of start to uncover what's actually around you, then you'll start to sort of open your mind, I guess. I think that's when you let the ideas come in. And so sometimes I might know what I'm aiming for. I'll go, oh, I can see that this could be something. Sometimes I'm trying to look for pieces so that I can make something bigger later on.
When you're out there with the camera, you mentioned earlier you're shooting manual.
Yeah.
How much of that technical skill have you built up over the years?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I've said before, I'm not really a big fan of technicality and rules, and that's, you know, again, possibly to my detriment and also possibly evident in my photography. But, you know, you know, you can only be who you are and shoot the way you shoot. So, I mean, I started shooting in manual and have continued to do so. So I've got a basic grasp on, you know, the three main, you know, light sort of sources and how to control them. I probably don't go much further than that, and I am handheld, so, you know, I have to work within the parameters of light and, you know, camera shake and things like that. But I work my way around that just because I like to travel light. So tripods and things like that. I want my photography to be as accessible to me and without, you know, making it complicated. So, like, you know, my technical knowledge, would be like probably people could be very critical of it, but I know I understand enough to shoot completely manually, and, you know, sometimes, like I say, my light, because of tripods and long exposures and things like that, I might sometimes lose the clarity and things, but it's not really what my photography's about. And I have occasionally shot, you know, in various shooting modes, but I do find it lacks the nuances of, I suppose, my own personal style. So I've just always returned to the manual so I can adjust.
How would you describe your style?
Oh, it's really tricky. And I don't know that I can. And I'd almost want to throw that to you and say, how would you describe my style? Because I'm dying to know. I do like a moody photo, and I do like a sort of, I mean, you know, I'm definitely attracted to foggy, you know, low light conditions and forests and things like that. But that doesn't stop me from wanting to photograph bright light, you know. I don't know, like, you know, I feel sometimes that I'm too contrasting things, you know, that I'm sort of like the optimism, sunshine, happy, and then I quite like attracted to the dark sort of, you know, gothic sort of stuff. Maybe my photography doesn't do that, but my heart sort of does that. So maybe I'm somewhere bridging those two things. So style, I don't know that I can answer that, because I don't know that I don't, like I said, I don't always identify as a photographer in some respects, because it's just a tool that I use, the camera. And so sometimes I find that, you know, my photos, you know, it's nature photography, and sometimes it is landscape photography, but it's not just that. Maybe I haven't found it yet.
Maybe. But I guess, or maybe you just don't know what it is, but it's there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it must be there because you've got an exhibition on right now.
Yeah, I do.
And clearly I haven't been yet, but I've seen the pictures you post online, and there is a clear sort of theme holding them all together. Yeah.
And they do marry together. It's like, I find there's 4 walls of the exhibition, and I find that there is a little bit of a forward journey, perhaps in the style of the pictures, but they all do tie together, and it was really lovely to see the final choice, to see how they do speak to each other. And you're right, there is something, but I still don't know what it is. And maybe it's colour. And it's not that I colour my photos necessarily, and it's just, or maybe it's cloud. I'm not sure.
The general trend in landscape photography particularly is to push the saturation and the vibrance up. And your photos are kind of the opposite, where they're much more muted.
It's not a conscious choice, but it's probably just a subconscious choice. I don't really like particularly saturated photos. I suppose I'm more attracted to more subtle tears and subtle hues and subtle beauty even, you know what I mean? Sometimes the too much noise, you know, I like things quieter, you know. I think there's a sense of calm in that, and that's massively what I'm trying to bring to my pictures too is calm, you know.
Yeah.
Just, you know, we're all a bit anxious and, you know, stressful, and, you know, that's what nature does for me. I suppose it's just me communicating what nature does for me, which is a calming and a softening. And my pictures are probably soft, and that's probably partly due to my technical, you know, focus, but it's also something that I actually like and am trying to achieve.
And I know this is going to grate with a lot of traditional photographers, but at what point do you say, I need to put an object into that picture, or a fantastical creature, for example? Is there a point where you think that you need to do that?
I sort of, it's a need, it's a want, you know, and I guess, I mean, you know, you could argue, and maybe this is something that I'm learning, because I think, you know, you're always evolving your style and refining it. And, you know, maybe it's just a way of communicating what the scene speaks to me of, and maybe there isn't a need to do that because maybe the scene already has all that there. But I mean, sometimes I just like to be playful, and I like to, I don't know, I like a bit of the power of the imagination and the fantastical, and maybe the slightly even supernatural, that sort of stuff. Like, I just like the playfulness of that. I think that, you know, as you grow older, you lose the power of that ability to think there might be a magic portal that you could go through, or, like, you know, just some kind of magic, I suppose. I just want to bring some magic to it, and sometimes I feel like the scene, for me, like the magic of nature has done that, and I just want to bring it, you know.
Nice. There's a picture with the dolphins.
Oh God, yes.
I just wanted to ask you about it because the obviously the shapes of the logs
clearly,
made you think about those. Putting the dolphins in, do you think that sort of reinforced what it was that you saw?
Yes.
And if you left them out, then that connection wouldn't be there.
Well, I suppose that was my fear, I think. And also because it was, you know, there's quite a bit of, you know, composition, you know, composite work in that photo, clearly. But, and sometimes I just want to experiment, you know, as well. I just want to, like, see what boundaries I can push. But yes, definitely in that, for me, it was all about the dolphins in the logs. And I did have a feeling that maybe people wouldn't see it. So I thought I'd make it really, really clear. But the funny thing about that photo, because I've been really unsure about it on and off, so many people really, really like it. And I don't know that I do anymore, even when I had it, because I put it in my first exhibition in Deadwood, and I was really hesitant about putting it in, because I was like, but you wouldn't believe there is this whole demographic of people that love it. And I'm just like, really? You know, because I don't know if I'm so sure about it anymore. You know, so it exists. It's part of that series of works. You know, so I don't know.
That's part of your growth cycle.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, got to have them.
Yeah, for sure.
And there'll be more.
And you can't hide them.
No.
So I wanted to talk about the Henry Jones Art Prize. So you're a finalist.
Yeah.
What was the work that you had in there?
It was from Ash Life, and that's also in my current show. So that was taken, again, we just had the best conditions up at the Devil's Gullet, which is a pretty wild place. And I don't know if it's always as incredible as when I went there, but it was shrouded in fog. We were there, it was freezing cold, snowy, and you know, you couldn't even see over the gullet. You know, it was just an absolute, it was such a wild day, and I got a lot of great shots from that day. So that was, and the area's obviously had a bushfire through it a few years ago. And there's just these incredible dead burnt trees, but then these, you know, this really brightly coloured red, which I did, you know, accentuate, red and yellow sort of moss, and then like dark, muddy water puddles. I don't know, it was, and then sort of all this young growth on the dead tree, and it was just such a striking kind of, you know, this line, and I'm very attracted to dead trees, which may have worked out. You know, just the colour and the mood of it, it just really spoke to me as a picture I wanted to get straight away, because it's part of the show, but it was like one of the first ones I worked on so I could get it into the Henry Jones. Right. So I was absolutely delighted when it made it into the list.
Yeah.
It's a great day.
Yeah. And what prompted you to enter?
I sort of enter regularly.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought I had a great work to go in, and
Yeah.
I thought, I do enter the competition because I think it's a great competition, and I think they're really supporting emerging artists. Yeah, no, I thought that the work had evolved to a place where it probably was worthy of being, submitted to the show, and I was just delighted to get it in.
Yeah. Being a finalist is huge.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It was, and it's a great validating moment too, because you would know that sometimes, you're not entirely sure about the work that you're putting out there. So some reinforcement's always nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So your current exhibition at Cradle Mountain, how did that come about?
Well, I've really wanted to do my next series of work in the Cradle Mountain region, and who wouldn't, because it's beautiful. But I also had sort of had my focus on the Wilderness Gallery. I was like, I think my work would sit well there, so I sort of had my sights set on it. And then, as luck would have it, they opened up an EOI earlier in the middle of last year.
Okay.
So I just applied. I didn't know what it would entail, but I just knew that it was the gallery and the body of work I wanted to do. So I just threw my hat in the ring, and it's turned out to be even better than I expected, because it's quite a long-running exhibition. It goes to the end of April, and it's been a fabulous experience. Like the whole working with the gallery and the Brogan, the creator, it's just been like, couldn't ask for something to be more pleasant, I guess.
And did you have an idea of the work you wanted to go in there, or an idea of the style of things you wanted to put in? Or
yeah, I did. I'm not sure that I think I have diverted from what I perhaps originally intended, but I knew I wanted a series of Northwest Coast works, and I knew I wanted Cradle Mountain to be, because I actually don't have a picture of the mountain in the show, and that's kind of my style as well, is to not do the thing that you should be doing. It has turned out quite differently, because there may be the foggy, moody ones are kind of maybe more in line with what I expected, but some of them, I suppose the colours up there had just surprised me, and I guess the photos evolved differently just because of the way that the colours in the landscape are. We were there in spring, and it was wet and wild and freezing, and I didn't even really notice the colour, until you take it home, and I just was like, oh my God. And like, 'cause spring, it was early spring, so like they just must be these colours that are ready to come, but they're just hot, like dormant, in the leaves and the branches and stuff like that. I feel like I captured them at this really sort of maybe unusual moment, where they sort of hadn't really taken form, but they were just sitting there,
Camera-wise?
Yeah.
When, it's like a age-old question, but when was the first time you picked up a camera, and why?
A real camera?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm old enough to remember real cameras, film cameras, but my love didn't really start there. I played with my mum's camera, and we had cameras, but it really wasn't until quite recently, I guess. And by recently, I suppose I mean the last 15 sort of years, but that's probably when the mobile phones came out. So that's not a real camera, but that is when I started to get I started to just take more and more photos. I just had this thing in my pocket that I just found I could snapshot things that I found beautiful or enthralling or whatever. And so that was the beginning. And then I think, we got lots of bushwalks and stuff. And so I'd go off with the camera and start taking photos. So I don't know whether I said I wanted a camera or whether my partner Lockie decided I should have a camera, but he bought me like a little Canon 600D.
Okay.
So it was pretty good for a little beginner. So I got a few lenses, went travelling overseas, and it was always like I just sort of became a bit like, must have my camera, must take photos. So that was the start. And then I upgraded to these.
Yep.
And then of course you just keep buying more like lenses and things like that along the way. And this is my most practical lens because it just does the most, and it means I don't have to carry too much stuff.
That's a 5D. That's the first.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's the first 5D.
It's a Mark III.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. And of course, the nicer the lens you get, the better everything gets.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, this is just a cheapie, this lens. But I'm not cheapie, but they're ever cheap. But it's not my best, but it's my most versatile. And then so I had one of these and I dropped it in the river, as I was saying to you earlier. and I killed it, and then I went and got this one to replace that. I don't know, like you can always have more equipment and all of that stuff, but I mean, you just got to, I think it's also just really good to work with and use what you've got, you know.
Absolutely.
And I'm like lenses, I'll always upgrade with lenses and, you know, explore, because obviously, as we were saying, nice glass makes a huge difference.
We're out there today and, you know, sun is shining, it's absolutely fantastic. You were talking about how, well, you were shooting in the dead of winter. What's your optimal condition?
Oh, fog, cloud, rain, like really, I mean, obviously you need, there's definitely golden hour and beautiful light. I mean, there's no question that they make beautiful photos. But I definitely prefer an overcast day. You were talking about saturation before.
Yeah.
I definitely think the sun probably has an element of saturation. So maybe because I shoot in those conditions, my photos maybe don't have that saturation. I like to shoot at 100 ISO as much as possible, but obviously I can't always in those conditions. So I will bump it up when I have to. Obviously, you know, handheld shutter speed, and, you know, obviously if there's wind and things like that, then you're going to have problems about how much light you're going to get and how much movement you're going to get. Sometimes I'll just go to 50 and cross my fingers, you know, or if I can find something to stabilise, you know, at least it's anything that I can just sort of do to improve my chances of getting the shot. Sometimes I just accept that I'm not going to get the shot and I just let that be, you know, and that's okay. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, you can always sort of, you know, go for that aperture and do a bit of focus stacking to try to get, you know, more depth of field, you know. So there are things that you can do.
So you're not averse to photo stacking?
No, well, how could I be? I think with all the work that I can do, if I do it, I'd almost be hypocritical if I said, "Oh no, you can't do that." But but I don't really seek to do it, and I'll only do that. I did it for one work in this current show, and it's just because without it, the shot was lost, and it was a lovely shot, you know. So I don't seek to do it, but and I didn't even do it deliberately. It was just luck that I happened to have two that I could marry. Yeah.
Recently, I did a 2-spot focus stack.
Yeah.
And I quite liked that.
Yeah.
Because my 2 subjects were in focus, but nothing else was.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so that section in between was out of focus.
Yeah.
It had a really nice effect.
Yeah.
It's the pin sharp front to back that I just find.
Oh no,
you know,
I never do that. No, I mean, not say that like it's a bad thing. No, I wouldn't. That doesn't really appeal to me. Like you know, I just more for when like you know you just know that one thing, similar to what you're saying, it just needs to be in focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, on that topic, do you have a favourite technique that you use?
I think because my subjects change so much, I suppose, like, you know, like I say, from the detail to the sort of, you know, more expansive shots, I don't think it's hard to get into a technique. Like I underexpose, as I said earlier, I do prefer to underexpose. It's more the shot that I'm looking for. And maybe I have techniques in editing because I like to adjust my levels, which I was saying, because I just like that, you know, which some people might hate, but I like it. I like to keep my numbers like around the f8 and lower. Like I don't really like to go the full sort of range, I guess. I don't mind a little bit of blur. I don't mind a little bit of intentional camera movement is something that I, you know, kind of dig. I don't do a lot of it, but it's something that I kind of think can create. I mean, again, it comes back to that painterly, I think, sort of style that I quite like. And I suppose that again comes back to the softness that you were talking about, like, you know, because there's, you know, when you lose softer focus, you have a softer something, you know. So yeah, that's probably is maybe, even if it's unintentional, it's probably what I do.
So I've heard from various women who've gone through art school that towards the end, they are told outright, because you're a woman, you're not going to succeed in the art world. I was just wondering if you've found any sort of roadblocks.
I'm sure they're there, but I'm not sure that I've put myself in positions where I encounter them. I'm absolutely sure they're there. I very much feel that I'm sort of forging my own way. I'm blundering perhaps blindly into the whole thing, you know. And I'm older, I guess, you know. Like I'm not coming fresh from art school into the, you know, industry. It's like I've worked, you know, however many years, you know, in conventional employment, you know, before I went, no, hang on a minute, if not now, when? So I'm just going to do it. So I guess I'm approaching it a little bit differently, and from a different, maybe a more secure position, I guess, you know, because I just being of this age and, you know, not trying to come up through the ranks. I'm just kind of like, I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
And whatever happens is what's happening, and it's unfolding quite nicely. But I suppose I haven't really ever really directly approached those sorts of institutions where I would encounter that, and maybe in time I will. But I've been lucky, and a lot of who I've dealt with have been women so far. So maybe that's the whole very reason why.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's, you know, going to happen soon. I don't know. I'm sure it will. I won't look forward to it.
Maybe you're just sneaking in there and it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late. Yeah. That's how I like to think, you know. And I would say that to anyone. Like, you know, there's so many ways I think now to, like, you know, just forge your own path without needing permission from these people. So that's what I'd say to anyone. Just blunder ahead. Yeah. You know, whatever way you can make a path.
Is that your full-time thing, or you have work as well?
Yeah, no, I work in the summer.
Okay.
So I've you know, I used to obviously work, but I was like, well, I can sort of sustain the balance between the art now, and I do a summer job. I'm a pool lifeguard because, as I said, I like swimming. Right. Yeah, and I love it. Outdoor pool, just summer gig, and and I like to be outside. I had to get out of the corporate office vibe. Like, I found it really unhealthy and really sedentary and really just, I don't know, I just need to be outside and moving more, and, you know, the sound of the water like we've got here. It's just, that's the way, you know, life should be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you've got the entire winter to work.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah,
it's fabulous. It's a really good mix, and I'm lucky. You know, I'm at a point where that's possible, you know.
I've been thinking a lot about the idea of cross-training. So, like, I used to mountain bike, and it wasn't until I started running that I realised that one discipline benefits the other. How do you find, because you've obviously got a whole range of different things that you do, if you didn't paint, you probably wouldn't take the photos that you take. Yeah, totally. I mean, and if I didn't paint, would I take the photos? I don't know, you know, and if I didn't take the photos, would I still be doing, you know, visual artwork? I think they all bleed into one another without question, you know. But it does impact your eye. You know, I think the things that you do also, like, you know, your interests and your hobbies, like, they impact your subjects, I guess, as well. So that bleeds into, you know, what you do. And I suppose I probably have a little bit of a, you know, romance, fantasy, sort of, not romance, that's not the word I'm looking for, but a romantic notion of, like, imagery, I guess, you know, and I think that all flavours your work as well. I've probably had a pretty varied journey, I guess. I was, you know, always creative and always liked to paint and draw and, you know, anything like that. And I've always had a bit of a rebellious streak. I studied music, actually, was the first thing that I went down. I used to sing and be in a band as a teenager, like a terrible band, but, you know, you got to do it. I moved to Bathurst in central West New South Wales, and I worked with horses, and I studied horses, and I worked on an equine rehab facility and all herbalists and stuff like that. So that was a really great time of my life, actually. It was really fabulous. I was fit and young and strong, drove tractors and stuff for a living. It was really great. And then my partner was a carpenter, and we'd sort of moved for the horses for me, so it was his turn. So he wanted to be a wooden boat builder, and so we moved to Tasmania, and so I've been in Tassie for 20 years. And then I went, okay, I need to get corporate and get some cash going. Yeah. So I worked in administration, and then eventually that evolved into communications. And I did that for about 13 odd years, all up. Right. You know, shifting a bit, but pretty much that was the vein. And during that period, the camera came into it, and so the camera was always evolving, and then of course that evolved into studying design, and then I just hit a point where I was like, I just really miss
being outside. I really miss creative, and I really miss, you know, when you're just always, you know, my life used to be much more, I suppose, artistic and just more, you know, communicative. And I was finding that I was becoming, you know, really, you know, I'd lost my sense of joy and things like that. And so that's when I have flipped the switch on everything, and like photography and artistic endeavours have become my absolutely main focus. I wrote a novel, which I was talking about before in the car, which has sort of had a big hold because the photography's kind of taken a life of its own, which I didn't really expect, but I suppose maybe I did because I was doing it. But I think all threads have always led to being creative, and also to trying to also just maintain a sense of spontaneity and youth in your life, because I just think life, you know, was becoming very, very mundane and very much, it looked the same all the time, and I didn't want to live just for the holidays in the end of the year and stuff like that. So yeah, so that was the flip, I guess.
Thank you once again. Really good to get to know you and your journey through photography and art.
Well, thank you for having me. And I know I'm not what you would usually, you know, have on the show, but I'm really honoured to be asked. Yeah.
No, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.